Alright guys, so today is the next day. It's pretty much fully cured right now. So it's on there really good. It's not coming off. It's really hard. We're gonna go ahead and add the top layer to make it actually form and stay that way. So that's what we're gonna be doing now. You are pretty much going to be doing the exact same thing for the mixing part. The mixing part, you will be using the same resin, this time without the base coat, which was the black one that we used here to make it dark. You're just gonna be using the resin itself. This part is going to be a really light coat, so be very careful with it. Don't overdo it. So we're only going to be mixing a little bit. I think I'm going to be doing about 3 and then 1.5. That's going to be a 2-in-1 solution. So let's go ahead and do that, and then I'll pick it up once we add the next coat on there. Alright guys, so here's the panel. I let it cure for about 2 days. That way it's completely solid. I checked it yesterday and I would touch it and it was still squishy, so it wasn't completely cured. Right now I can touch it, I can put my nail on it and it won't make an indentation or anything. If you look at it right now, it looks really shiny. You can see the carbon fiber, but you can also see a lot of these bumps everywhere. And that's because of the carbon fiber. It's creating those bumps. If you want it to be completely smooth or be a lot smoother, you do want to go ahead and use a vacuum tool. That will make the epoxy actually smoothen out a lot easier and a lot better. Right now you can see a few runs here and there. For example, like right here, I have a few runs. Right here you can see a little bit of waviness. If you don't use a vacuum tool, it just means you have to do a lot more sanding and you may have to add more epoxy to make it smoother. But I don't have a vacuum tool, so that's why I'm doing it this method. But it would be completely up to you which way you actually want to do it. Let's go ahead and start sanding it. I'm actually going to begin with 180 to get a lot of the bumps out. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to 220. I do not recommend using a sanding tool like a machine because that'll go through the epoxy very quickly and it'll go through to the carbon fiber. You want to make sure that you're using a sanding block to completely make it smooth. If you just use sanding paper, it's not going to come out very smooth. You're going to have some high spots, some low spots. So it's really important to use a block. That way you can go ahead and go through it very easily to make nice straight lines and curves so it doesn't look all wavy. Once I get to that point where it looks nice and smooth, I'll pick it back up and show you guys the difference between a smooth area and a non-smooth area. Alright, so we're almost done with the sanding process. I just need a few more spots. There were some spots that were really low on resin. So when I added the next coat, I need to be sure that I get these areas. For example, right here I got way too close. So it kind of cracked right here on the end. Hopefully when I add the resin, it cleans it up. It looks really nice. But everything else is really good. This had a lot of resin on it, so I was able to smoothen it down really nice. Right here, I still need to go ahead and sand it down. It's still shiny, as you can see. That way it can stick to it when I add the next epoxy coat. So we're getting there, just a little bit more. Once I fully sand it down, I'm gonna go ahead and wash it and wet it so you guys can see how it looks. Once you wet it, you'll be able to see all the carbon fiber on there, and you'll see some areas that you need to go into and some areas that you need to clean up. Alright, so here's how it's looking right now. It's looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and wash it right now, that way you guys can see how it looks. Alright, so here's how the carbon fiber looks wet. Now you can see we sanded it down. Looks nice and clean. Starting to dry up right here. It's gonna go back to like a faded look. Once we add that coat on top, it's gonna look really clean and it's gonna look shiny. So as of right now, we're gonna let this dry. I'm gonna let it dry for a full day. I don't want to do it when it's wet. Then we're gonna go ahead and add some alcohol to clean it up. And now I think this is gonna come out really sick. You can see the carbon fiber. It came out really dope. This is actually the hardest part. We're gonna go ahead and add another epoxy coat on top. We're gonna pick this up tomorrow. Once I have this done, I'll show you guys how it looks like when we add the next coat. All right guys, so today is the next day. We're gonna go ahead and clean this up. I'm gonna wipe it down really quick with some alcohol. Once that dries up, I'm gonna go ahead and start mixing up the resin. I'm gonna be using a little bit, so I'm gonna be using about 3 and 1.5. Just to make sure I don't use too much, because we're gonna be applying a really light coat right now. And I might add a second one on top. So let's go ahead and start mixing it. Alright guys, so I applied the first coat and it didn't come out good, so I'm gonna have to redo it. I went ahead and grabbed some napkins and pretty much took off as much resin as I could. That way I don't have to sand too much when it dries up. But what happened was, when I was applying the resin, or before I actually cleaned it, when I cleaned it, it left like these little fibers. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but there's a few still on there. Some little blobs that I was seeing from the little fibers that were getting stuck. I thought it was a resin at first, but it's not. I learned from my mistakes, but it gives you a good idea how it's actually gonna look once we go ahead and apply the last clear. So it looks really good. It pretty much looks the same as that. Learn from my mistakes. Make sure that when you clean it, there's nothing on there at all before you start applying your last coats. That way it doesn't get stuck on there. So if you guys remember from the last clip, we had this edge right here that was sticking up, and I went too far into the carbon fiber, which led it to pretty much crack. What I did in order to fix that is I grabbed these clips right here, and then I went ahead and put them on there and pinched it together. That way it could stay down, because it kept popping up when I would add the resin. I left it on there for about an hour or two. Once it got to that point where it started getting tacky, I went ahead and just pretty much added a bunch of resin that I had left over. Since I did make a mistake, then I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just go ahead and add a bunch of resin on the areas I needed it a lot. So I was able to go back in here and go ahead and add a bunch of resin on there. So if you guys make a mistake like I did, make sure to go back through all the areas. Make sure you add enough resin, that way it adheres and it adds a thick coat on there, so it's not like too thin. But it did help a lot. You can see now that it looks a lot smoother. It's actually on there, because when you add the resin on top just alone, it doesn't actually stay on the area. It wants to fall down. If you can see right there, the resin kept falling onto the paper. So just adding that on there, sticking it on there, let it get tacky, add some more, and actually stick on there and adhere properly. So yeah, I'm pretty disappointed that I have to go ahead and sand it again, but it shouldn't be too much work, because it's not going to be as much sanding as it was before. Because before, what we did is we went ahead and pretty much removed all the grooves. Now what we have to do is just remove the top coat and then go ahead and actually clean it properly, and then we can go ahead and add the next coat of resin. So we're getting there. It's going to get done. We're pretty much going to allow us to dry completely today, and then tomorrow we're going to go ahead and begin sanding. All right guys, so we're going to go ahead and end this video right here. We're pretty much close to done. Not too much left to do. I do need to go ahead and sand it down again because I messed up. So I did add an additional step to myself, which really sucks. But after that, we're going to go ahead and pick it up in the next video, where I start adding layers of resin on top to add a really thick coat. Once we do that, we have to go ahead and sand it down again, but it's not going to be as difficult. We already did the hard part, which is pretty much sanding it down at this point, because there's a lot of grooves in it and we pretty much removed that. So after that, it's pretty much going to come out pretty smooth. So you did the hard part. Now the next part is just a little bit more timing, getting the resin on there, smoothing it down, making it look nice and clean. That way we can go ahead and apply the clear coat. Not too much left to get this completed. It's getting there. I will be revealing how it looks in the next video, the finished product, and it's coming out pretty dope. And I do appreciate your guys' continued support. I've been getting a lot of DMs on Instagram how dope this looks, how sick it looks, especially because it's something that I did on my own and I'm trying it myself. It gives me a little bit more motivation to be able to finish this, and it's getting there. It's looking pretty sick. So thank you guys for your support. Make sure to follow me on Instagram to stay updated on things that are coming to the channel, new things that I'm doing here and there. And also make sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It does help me out a lot. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.